The general rule of thumb when it comes to reapplication of sunscreen is about every 2 hours if you're outdoors in the sun during peak hours. If you're indoors, however, there is a study that did confirm that it may not be necessary to reapply sunscreen during the course of the day if you're not sweating or swimming. However, if you're planning to be outdoors, especially during peak hours of sun exposure, reapplying sunscreen is essential to maintain its maximal effectiveness. It's hard to say how effective your sunscreen will be after a few hours of use, so just reapplying it to maintain that peak SPF is ideal. If you are sweating or swimming, you may want to look at the side of the bottle that you chose and see if it's water resistant. If it is, it'll have a time factor listed next to it, either 40 minutes or 80 minutes. This is a better gauge to go by if you are sweating or swimming, to reapply sunscreen a little more frequently than the 2-hour mark if needed. If you're spending time outdoors enjoying yourself, it can be really easy to forget to reapply sunscreen. Try to set an alarm on your phone or your watch that just tells you when it's time to reapply. By doing so, you can make sure that you maintain your sunscreen's maximal effectiveness so that you can enjoy the outdoors safely without risking getting a sunburn or too much UV exposure. If you really do plan to be indoors and you apply an adequate amount of sunscreen first thing in the morning, it may not be necessary to reapply sunscreen if you truly plan to stay indoors. That means you're not going out for lunch, you're not going out for a drive or for a walk, you are staying indoors and you're not sweating or swimming and risking UV exposure when you do go outside and reducing your sunscreen's effectiveness. So if you plan to stay indoors, apply an adequate amount of sunscreen first thing in the morning, and that should be sufficient. However, if you do find yourself going outdoors, especially during midday hours, or you do plan to sweat or swim, please reapply your sunscreen to maintain its maximal effectiveness. Reapplying sunscreen can be fraught with a lot of challenges only because once you're dressed and you're outdoors, wearing sunscreen can get a little messy if it gets on your clothing, on those areas of your skin adjacent to where clothing lies. Try to apply sunscreen first thing in the morning all over so that way you have adequate coverage, and when you go to reapply, you might want to consider different forms of sunscreens, different formulations, things like sunscreen sticks, roll-ons, sprays, easier ways to reapply just to ease the process and make it so that it's not as difficult to get through the day with the reapplication.